Welcome to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. With me, as always, Jack Fairchilds. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Chris.
Look, there's just so much to talk about today. And, you know, one of the things we try to do on this program is not to keep covering the same old stories over and over and over again, because the news cycle is so fast, it's so vicious right now. And there's so much information overload. Now, granted, with the things that have happened over the last few days, it's going to be difficult not to touch on what happened to Trump, the assassination attempt that everyone is talking about. That has to be a part of the show. But I want to start by thinking about this in terms of predictability. Predictability. You know, years ago, I entered politics. And as you know, Jack, they called me a hard charger. You know, I didn't wait my place in line. If you know much about politics, you should just know that every party apparatus has a group of establishment creatures that inhabit the top tier of the party, and they get to select who they want to inherit their positions. We've seen this time and time in Mississippi, but it's not just Mississippi, it's nationwide. If you are a good little boy and girl, and if you sit there long enough and you do exactly what you're told by your puppet masters, they will eventually tap you on the shoulder and they'll say, hey, it's your turn. And what they mean by saying it's your turn is, now we're going to give you enough money to be successful. Now we're going to make sure you have the backers and the support to be successful. Yeah, you may be a hypocrite. Yeah, you may not have any consistent principles, but you're really good at kissing butt. And if you're really good at kissing butt, there's nothing you can't accomplish in politics. And so every party has this hierarchy. And they expect young politicians to sit there and shut up, even if they see the whole world is on fire, even if they see that things are collapsing, even if they see, like everybody else has seen over the last 15 years, that this country is in dire straits. Yeah. They tell you to sit down and shut up. And we see it. You know who they are. Oh, yeah. Even the people in office now, they don't dare say anything controversial. I mean, Trump does, but he's a different beast, isn't he? I'm talking about your run-of-the-mill Republican establishment candidates. You know who they are. They will sit there in their little offices. As long as they can hold an office, they won't challenge the system. They wouldn't dare challenge the system. It's the system that got them there. It's the system that allows them to stay there. So they sit there and they enjoy their meals and their steaks and their perks, and they enjoy all the things that comes along with being a professional butt kisser. And so things happen for these people, despite the fact the country's on fire. Despite the fact that we all see the stability of this country has been shaky, not just in the last 3 or 4 years. Come on, that's more apparent now, obviously, but we've been seeing this for a long, long time. The debt, the loss of individual liberty, the growth of the size and scope of the government, the inability to ascertain a consistent philosophy for the Republican Party, and then moreover, watch the Democrats move so far to the left, their party's not even recognizable. And so you start adding up the calculus, right? It is 2 + 2 = 4. Unless you're an establishment politician, then it's 2 + 2 = 3. We all saw this coming. And so, yes, I fought hard. Yes, I butted heads. And yes, I became persona non grata in many parts of Mississippi's political circles. And yet, every bit of this has been predictable. You know it, I know it, you just haven't opened your eyes. You were too busy listening to the establishment tell you sweet nothings and tell you everything's going to be okay, nothing to see here. But deep down, you kind of knew. I mean, think about it. How did the Tea Party really get started? Those handful of people pushed the panic button.
Yep.
Those handful of people saw it coming. They tried to move the direction of the country, and they were called all sorts of names for it. Radicals and outliers and all of these things we made fun of them for doing, even though they saw what you should have seen, but you were too busy sitting at the establishment's table, begging for their breadcrumbs, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, and you allowed the country to fall into this place where we barely recognize it. Come on. You saw what happened just a few days ago, Donald Trump. You saw it. That wasn't predictable. You didn't think there was going to be political violence. The Republican Party seemingly has, over the last 20 years, has stood for nothing. The Democrats have stood for everything that's not worth anything. So in between, it's just the average American citizen, and all this name calling and all this poison in the public discourse? You didn't see this coming? Of course you saw it coming. You were just too afraid to admit it. You thought somehow, some way, somebody was going to fix it. But you weren't willing to take the risk necessary to turn things around. So here we are. Here we are. An old man with the Democrats, part of the establishment there, senile, but President of the United States of America. Doesn't know up from down, but President of the United States of America. By all reports, he's asleep by 7 o'clock in the evening. God forbid something happened at 8 p.m. God forbid there be a public crisis in the middle of the night, because how do you wake the old man up when he hasn't had his Jell-O yet? It's gotten ridiculous. But that's what the establishment does. They're not worried about doing the right thing. They're worried about perpetuating their power base, because there's a bunch of Democrats under Biden that have gotten powerful and rich. So they'll fight for him to stay, even though they know the guy has completely lost touch with reality. On the other side of the equation, you have the new butt kissers, the very ones that told us just how horrible Donald Trump was for 10, 12, whatever, many years, but now say he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. You see the game you're playing. It's the same game you've always played. Never willing to walk out of the room and do the right thing, just always willing to kind of gravitate toward power, wherever that power may be. So now they're gravitating toward Trump. The problem is it might be too late. And I know I'm not supposed to say that. I'm supposed to be an optimist.
Yeah.
But the same impatience that drove me to fight the system 14 years ago was driven by a knowledge of patterns, predictable patterns based in human nature. This may shock you, but humans haven't changed a lot. We have cell phones and we have all this technology, but ultimately, over the period of time that we've been around, we typically make the same mistakes, have the same assumptions, have the same aspirations. And if you'll study the past, you'll see what the future is going to be. Folks, this is not a good time for this country. Where does it end? Let's think through it. We're being driven primarily right now by fear. Fear. Both sides. We're afraid, we're uncertain, we know something is wrong, and we seek to stop it somehow. The question is, what are you willing to do to stop it? Now, I know some say, well, I'm going to fight. That's great, you should. But do you fight by tearing down the Constitution? Do you fight by undermining civil liberties? Do you fight by abandoning all the principles that got us here in the first place? Remember, America is more than geography. It's a landmass, and those borders matter, but we're more than that. We're about liberty, individual liberty, personal autonomy, dignity for every individual. Would you sacrifice that for nationalism? Seems unusual. Seems a bit dangerous to me. I'm trying to figure out where this might be heading, because just a few days ago, a knucklehead took a shot at President Trump, or soon-to-be President Trump. And I watched the reactions unfold on social media. Now I realize the extremes of both sides always get the news, and the extremes of both sides of the equation always are the loudest. I was alarmed.
Yeah.
Was I the only one that watched the reactions from both sides, scratching my head saying, what is happening to this country? And remember, it's the same split we saw 20 years ago. Now it's manifested itself where people aren't talking about it privately any longer. They're now on social media banging it out for the whole world to see. On one hand of the argument are my friends on the right, people I adore and love and think a lot of, as you know. And immediately they jump to a conclusion that this had to be a higher level government orchestrated assassination attempt. There was no evidence of that. But they jumped to it immediately, and people followed it.
Yep.
We'll get to that in a second. On the other side of the equation, the lunatics on the American left, they were arguing it was staged.
I saw that too.
What?
Yeah.
Staged? Or conversely, they were super happy somebody actually took a shot.
Or they were disappointed that they didn't make the shot.
AKA Benny Thompson's little toady up there in the Delta. Somewhere between those two extremes is the truth. Somewhere between those two extremes is still a rational America, right?
You hope.
But fear drives us to places we normally wouldn't go. Let's talk about that. Now, look, I may be proven wrong. There may be, at some point, enough evidence that comes down the path, and I may say, dadgummit, it was a conspiracy. We're Grassy Knoll 2.0, or whatever the case may be. I haven't seen that yet. But the more rational assumption at this stage is that the Secret Service just really messed up. That doesn't mean there was a conspiracy necessarily, does it?
No.
It means that professional people sometimes make really big mistakes. Now, this is part of the issue because it comes again from our fear. We're afraid, and somewhere in the back of our minds, we believe that always something good is going to result. I'll give you some examples. I don't know where this comes from, maybe too much Hollywood, maybe too many movies growing up as a kid, but there's always this assumption that there's always someone out there that's going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Somebody smarter, somebody in Washington, right? Maybe Bruce Willis will land a space shuttle on an asteroid and blow it up and detonate it. There's always somebody that can do something to save mankind from our inevitable disaster.
Yes.
Right? We believe that. And when something happens we can't explain, it has to be a conspiracy.
Absolutely it
Okay?
does.
Because we're not able to admit to ourselves, and here's the dirty rotten secret, and nobody wants to talk about this. This whole thing, civilization as we recognize it, is built on the most flimsy house of cards imaginable. There's no Superman out there.
No.
Nobody's coming to save the day. When it collapses, and nothing can really be done at that stage. Civilizations have collapsed multiple times throughout history, and everybody there always thought someone was going to be there to save the day. And so fear takes over, and you think, my God, how could the Secret Service have been so bad? The answer is, they couldn't have been. It was a conspiracy.
Yeah.
I don't know why we jump to those conclusions right away. Meanwhile, on the left, same thing, staged. Seriously?
Yeah.
What lunatic on the left would think for a moment that a guy would stage? I don't think there's any dispute that an assault rifle shot 8 rounds, is there?
Yeah.
That was staged?
Not even remotely.
That was staged?
Yeah.
Is the American liberal so bombastically insane that they would think that? The answer is, of course, yes, because they had apparently they suffer from the same fears that we're suffering from, just from a different location. I guess they really believe that Donald Trump is evil. I haven't seen evidence of that.
They 100% believe that. That's why they compare him to Hitler, and that's why it's believable.
We're going to get there.
All right,
No, we're going to get there. Yeah,
pause.
we're going to get there. We're going to get there because that's why this is predictable. You can't go through a period of time, socially or psychologically, and be attacked and ridiculed every imaginable way and not have some resulting pain and occurrence that occurs. I'll give you an example. When I ran for office, goodness gracious, if I disagreed with a position, a liberal position, there was no debate. I was a racist.
Oh, I saw it. I remember it.
Okay. If I disagree with a liberal position, you're a sexist.
Yep.
There was no discussion. Immediately, they sought to illegitimize me as a candidate. And the Republicans did as well. When I was going after their golden calf, they did the same thing. Cut the legs out from under. That's what they said. Hit him early. Hit him often. Make him seem like a bad guy. And it worked. It worked, right? No discussion. No discussion, just attacks. But when it's constant and it's unrelenting, you wonder why feelings get hurt. But when it comes to Trump, and it's been constant and unrelenting, like you said, these illusions that he's somehow Hitler reborn.
Yeah.
You read it enough, you go through it enough, and the American left, these wackadoos begin to believe it. So of course somebody's going to take some action to try to stop it because he's been seen and defined as inherently evil. He's not. He's a man that's doing what he thinks is right. But here we are. Somewhere there's reason, but that's not where wars start. Problems begin on the margins. Angry, scared, conspiracy, I hate you, there can't be a consensus. Predictable. But look, it's not like I blame the Republicans here. The Republicans have just done what Republicans do, which is nothing. They spent the last 30 years promising the moon and doing absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, the Democrats have shown their hand, and they've become radicalized. Now, what's the point of all this? Here's the point of all of it. Because of these extremes that are screaming and yelling and creating conspiracy theories, some lunatic took a shot at a former president, soon to be president, took a shot at him and tried to kill him. There's no place for that.
No.
There's no place for that. It's wrong. It should be condemned. Now, human behavior, let's predict it. Here's what's going to happen. Now you're going to see a bunch of people talking about uniting. How many times have I seen that word today online? We have to unite.
I've said it myself.
Folks, don't kid yourselves. There's not going to be unification here. And there's a reason for that. Because you can't go 20 years of being called a sexist and a racist and evil and bad and homophobic and old-fashioned, boomer. You can't go all those years and being ridiculed and then believe that somehow there's going to be a kumbaya moment.
It's not going to happen.
That's the problem. All those years when the Democrats were radicalizing their party, all those years when they were attacking, all those years when they were being hateful and disrespectful, dehumanizing their opposition, most of the Republicans sit there and took it, or, for that matter, followed their lead. So now we have a position now where you think, well, we have to unify. Well, I dare you to tell me how.
Well, Chris, the perfect example of why the unity will not work is go back to 9/11. The country came together for a brief period, maybe about a month, maybe two at the best, but eventually those old divides came right back. So it's a fleeting thing. Even if you're able to accomplish it, it won't last.
Those old divides were minuscule compared to these divides.
Exactly.
Let me tell you something. It used to be, I'm going to tell you about the Democratic Party. Just a few years ago, let's talk about the party in the 50s and 60s for the most part. These people loved America. They did. They just had a slightly different view of its direction. This new party, they don't love America. They want to change every part of it. They're not seeking tweaks, they're seeking total transformations. What do they say? Inherently evil, inherently problematic. It has to be changed, it has to be leveled and raised and rebuilt in their image. There's no unity there because there's no consensus there. We could always find unity with the Democrats of the old. Let's just say, for example, you're in 1941 and Pearl Harbor takes place. All of a sudden, we were unified because there wasn't that big of a gap between Republican philosophies and Democrat philosophies. We still were Christians, we still lived our country, we still spoke English, and we still loved our borders. There was unity. Post 9/11, just a few years ago, we were beginning to see these splits, but we were attacked from an outside force, and it was a little easier to come together. But now, the Democrat Party's been radicalized since 2001. Don't kid yourself. So it's difficult for us, because if you value a constitution and consistency, if you value law and order, how do you reach across the aisle? Now here's the thing, and pardon me as I have to drink my non-sponsored water, but here's the thing about this. The data is showing that the people are starting to respond the same way they perhaps should have responded long ago. They're starting to see the light. How do we know this? New poll out today. Scary. It's scary because this is a post-assassination attempt poll where everybody seemed to think this would be a benefit to President Trump, hopefully, right? Turns out there was no big jump in the numbers. More alarmingly, though, 80% of the voters said the country was spiraling out of control. 80%. This electorate hasn't agreed on the 80% question in years. But 80% believes the country is spiraling out of control. And it is. And somewhere in the middle of that spiral, we're supposed to find unity.
Yeah.
You have to first define what that looks like. If we love the country and they hate it, where's the unity? If we love the old ways, including God, and they hate those, where's the unity? If we believe we should be able to keep more of our hard-earned money, and they believe it should be used to redistribute for fairness and equality, where's the unity? And that's just three big issues. We're not talking about the other subculture issues, the social issues that form a wedge between us every single day. Those that would say a man should be allowed in a women's restroom versus those that say he should not.
Yeah.
Where's the unity there? Is there a way to compromise this position? Those that claim that a woman should be able to have an abortion, I guess up until the very end of the pregnancy, versus those that say life begins at conception. Where's the unity? Look, I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm trying to be a realist. We're very far apart. 80% of the country says we're spiraling out of control. And what do you do about that? Here's another data I think is interesting. 84%. When was the last time there was a poll where 84% of people agreed on anything?
I can't think of it.
84% believe that political extremism and violence is the result of what's going to happen. Now, you do realize, liberals, and I hope you understand this, and I think my friend Douglas Carswell wrote an article mentioning this, and if you haven't seen it, you should look it up. He defined this as half an inch from a civil crisis. And I said it that day, God forbid that bullet would have hit him.
Oh, it
God
would have been
forbid it
over.
would have killed him, because at that moment in American history, you should just know, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
He's right. Half an inch from a civil crisis. But it was predictable. This didn't just happen overnight. Half an inch away. And he makes some really interesting points in the article, one of which is something we've talked about on this very show. When you leave religion out of the conversation, if people no longer believe in a God, they don't believe in Christianity, that means that politics becomes a religion.
And it has.
He's right.
Yeah.
Chesterton, an English thinker, a philosopher, once said that when men choose not to believe in God, they do not thereafter believe in nothing. They then become capable of believing in anything. Well, somewhere along the way, we jettisoned God. We told him he wasn't welcome in schools, anywhere else, and now we're actually made fun of by still worshiping him. And we think that somehow that order in life can be replaced without chaos. Well, the order now is this. People need purpose. We don't kid ourselves. It's as predictable as the day is long. For 10,000 years, or as long as we've been here, every one of us have needed purpose. We needed a framework to try to explain not only life, but our role and place in this life. Framework, purpose. Religion helped us to do that. Now it's absent. And now people are clinging to new religions. Climate change, environmentalism, this radical Antifa nonsense they preach. It's a new form of religion. If you wonder why young people are so sold out and so adamant they're right, it's just as, it's Puritanism writ large from a different angle. They believe they're fighting for the good. They believe we're evil. I only say that to ask once again this rhetorical question. Unity? Where? How? Because now they believe that anyone who has a different viewpoint from them is inherently what? Evil. And so you spend your life not just discussing issues, you spend your life attacking and calling names, delegitimizing, dehumanizing. When you dehumanize somebody, the next step is violence, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Because now you're not attacking a human.
You're attacking an evil entity
Who holds, that's right.
The destruction of democracy, as they have called him.
Well, you just made a good segue point right there, because goodness gracious, the American left has vilified this man, Trump, more than anybody I can ever remember in history. Okay, he's going to end democracy.
Yep.
Second coming of
Hitler.
That sends an existential threat through their community. They really believe this nonsense. Yep. And if they believe it, of course violence is inevitable, isn't it?
That's the reason why the conspiracy theories was not something I was ready to jump into, because to me, everything that they have projected, everything that they have said about Donald Trump led to a deranged person deciding that this is what they needed to do. This was their calling. I see that as a very probable and believable reason why it happened. And I have examples of that when you go on social media and you see some of those because again, you've got folks making them famous. These folks who are not just the former Benny Thompson assistant, but there are multiple liberals out there that are saying something very similar, that, oh, if he could just been a better shot.
Well, yeah, that really is alarming. I'm going to tell you why it's alarming.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you were to ask a liberal about a cornerstone purpose of their movement, they almost always fall back to care and humanity and love. And those are wonderful things. But where's the care, humanity, and love when you're wishing death upon someone? Now, this is where it gets really interesting and really dangerous, because the person who worked for Benny Thompson, I mean, what a lunatic.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard what she said, Jack, you can paraphrase. Tell the people what she said. You don't read it. Just paraphrase it.
She basically said that that next time somebody needs to have a little bit better
shot.
Better shot.
Now, whether she was saying that tongue in cheek or literally, she's lost her humanity. Mm-hmm. I've never met any politician, no matter how much I wanted to dislike them, never once did I want harm to befall them. Never once did I want them shot. And if you're the kind of person that wants to go around shooting politicians, you're sick.
Yeah.
I don't care what side of the equation you're on. There's something to be said for that. Common humanity, right?
Yes.
Respect, dignity, that once was born from the co-worship of the same God. Mm-hmm. Religion taught us that, did it not?
It did.
Murder is a sin. It's evil. It should not happen. Yet this girl is so preoccupied with her power and position and prestige, and evidently she hates Trump so much, she can say those things. And then Benny Thompson, of course, this guy probably, just my opinion, I'm not saying this is a fact, but he probably shared a lot of sympathy for that shooter, did he not?
Hey, well, he's the same guy that
tried to eliminate Secret Service protection.
Thank you. That's where I was going.
Right. And so, look, and I know he comes out now and he fires her. Oh, great move. But how did it get to the point where anybody in your staff thought this was acceptable?
Yeah.
And look, it goes both ways because we got wackadoos on our side too.
Absolutely.
That would love to see somebody else get shot. That's not America.
No.
And it goes back to the first point I was making today. We're divided. We're radicalized. And that shot the other day is going to further radicalize us more than ever before. I didn't talk a lot about it when it occurred. I just put one post online and I said, this changes everything.
Yep.
Just watch. Just watch. You know, I know people. I study the human mind. I love people. That happened the other day changes everything. Because now, on one side of the equation, everybody's mad now.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
They were mad. Now they're really, as my son might say, they're big mad now.
They're big
That's
mad.
what Chamberlain might say. They're big mad now. Now, here's the way anger occurs. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I do want to point out, Dennis Prager had an article today, and he kind of went through just the last few years of mainstream publications vilifying and dehumanizing Donald Trump. The cover story of the New Republic, American Fascism, featuring Trump as Adolf Hitler. ABC News, just a few months ago, Donald Trump's history with Adolf Hitler and his Nazi writings. Mm-hmm. You see the picture that's being painted here. Bloomberg, Trump's Hitler fascination is an omnibus echo of the 1930s. The Associated Press, which is supposed to be a mainstream organization, says Trump says he didn't know the immigration rhetoric echoes Hitler. USA Today, did Trump say Hitler did a lot of good things? Washington Post, it's okay to compare Trump to Hitler. A comparative study in Line published by a professor tying again Trump to Hitler. Politico magazine from December, why Biden's campaign keeps linking Trump to Hitler. How much can you see? How much can they go? How far can they push before violence is the inevitable outcome of what's happening? And that's what we saw.
The current cover of the New Republic, American Fascism, and it has a picture of Trump with a Hitler stash.
You know, it's crazy.
That's the current issue.
Well, again, that's why I think in some respects it's harmful for us to allow conspiracy theorists in our midst to concoct without evidence that this was an upper-level government conspiracy, because at that stage you're covering up the real problem.
Yep.
Which is a press and a liberal institution and a bunch of new radicals that are dehumanizing their political adversaries. That's the danger. Because I think this guy was a lone wolf. I think he was working alone. And I think had it been a high level, just to be rhetorical, had it been a high level government orchestrated conspiracy, they could have found a better shot.
I think they would have found a better shot.
Than a 20-year-old knucklehead, right, who had been persecuted at school.
Yeah.
And I know they're going to try to say, well, you don't get it. That was all part of the plan. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I need evidence. I don't need speculation. I don't care what you think. I need evidence. You know, my dad once told me years ago, you don't have an opinion unless you bring me sources.
Yeah.
You know
that's
that?
fair. That's a good point.
I tried to have opinions at the kitchen table, and he would smile and say, well, that's cute. You better find 2 sources.
Well, Chris,
I just want sources. Now, with that said, I want to hear what you have to say. Here, okay, one more dadgum thing I've got to talk about before we read this commercial. We've never seen an assassination attempt this close, at this magnitude, in the age of social media.
No, we haven't.
I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to recognize that social media rots the brain, and I love it.
You can get a little
Right.
addicted to
I
it.
love it. But social media rots the brain. And what occurs here is that for all of human existence, there's always been crazy people that are radicalized. And that's okay. We hope they figure it out. Now, because of social media, they're in your living room.
They are.
And you get to see it. So we have to be careful. You can't paint all liberals as lunatics, even though it seems like that sometimes. And you can't paint all conservatives as X, Y, and Z. There's a portion that's not it. But remember, social media has a way of making everything seem immediate, real, and justified. And so when somebody initially pushed out this conspiracy theory, others just joined it. Look, like my dad would say,
Yeah.
I'm gonna need some sources. Because right now, it looks like the Secret Service just botched it.
And that's very believable, and that's what it looks like happened.
Yeah.
Back to your point where you were talking about the media and the way that they have spun this and how radical they've been themselves. I found over the weekend, I put out an episode of The Right Side, and I found a clip from Sky News Australia where they broke down all the different instances of where the media had attacked Trump, had attacked conservatives. There's another great example you can look at, because recently a former Republican senator passed away, and every headline said former longtime senator, climate denier.
I bet you can't pronounce his name.
I used to could, but I'm
Don't
not.
even worry about it. That's an inside joke.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's all in the way it's framed. It's all in the way it's framed, right?
Yep.
I'm going to give you one more example, then we're going to read the commercial.
Okay.
I remember years ago, Kavanaugh fell under intense scrutiny for these alleged sexual assaults that took place.
Yes.
Or whatever it was. I mean, whatever it was, he was alleged to be doing some really unusual sexual things. Is that a fair assessment?
That's true. They were.
And I was being interviewed, and the context of the entire interview dealt solely with Kavanaugh in politics and while these accusations are coming out 20 years later. So the context matters when someone issues a statement, right? And I said most of those are fabricated. 99% are fabricated most of the time. I didn't say sexual assault claims are fabricated. I said in this context, when you're talking about someone being attacked for finally reaching the pinnacle of his success after 20 plus years when the accusers were dead silent before that struck me as fishy. And so I said, fabricated. That's not what the press reported.
No, they reported
McDaniel's
just
says
all.
sexual assaults were fabricated. They're all a bunch of professional liars.
Yes, they
and
are.
they take those moments and they twist words. And the problem is there are Republican ladies out there sitting at home watching on TV, believed every word of it. And you just didn't do your research.
Yep.
Same thing with the headlines when it has Trump. There's one, where he used the word vermin a few weeks ago. Remember that? And they tried to say he used it the way Hitler did. Go back and watch it. Go back and watch it. He did not do that at all. It was absolutely moon battery. They create this narrative. They hope you fall for it. And then when you get good and pissed off, they say, oh, we got to unite.
Yeah.
They did this.
They
did this, and their allies in the media did this. Jack?
All right, well, let's talk about our sponsors real quick. This year has come with a lot of uncertainties. Will red-hot inflation continue? Will interest rates continue to soar? How can the Fed promise a soft landing when all signs point to another serious recession? If the beginning of this year has shown us one thing, inflation is not slowing down, and the Fed is completely incapable of fixing these issues. Like millions of other Americans, I found myself asking, how am I going to protect myself and my family? That's why we at the Midnight Ride Network spoke to the folks at Genesis Gold Group, our new platform partner for the Midnight Ride. They walked me through how I can protect my savings with real physical gold and silver. Genesis makes it easy to convert your 401k or your IRA into a retirement account backed by precious metals like gold and silver. Genesis Gold Group has decades of experience helping folks just like you preserve your hard-earned savings, and the service provided to their clients is truly one of a kind. Call Genesis Gold today at 800-200-GOLD for a no-commitment, informative consultation with one of their experts to find out if Genesis Gold can be a fit for you. That's 800-200-4653 or visit them at midnightridegold.com. And when it comes to protecting you and your family's future, I'm excited to share with you another one of the Midnight Ride's new sponsors, Prepper Beef. Prepper Beef offers a range of freeze-dried beef in freezer boxes with steaks and roast made from high-quality, all-American cattle. These products are made to last for up to 20 years, ensuring you have access to premium beef for decades to come. By supporting Prepper Beef, you're not just buying beef, you're supporting American ranchers, values, and your family. Join us in our mission to eat well today and eat well tomorrow. Visit midnightridebeef.com and stock up for your future today.
Outstanding. If you get a chance, go by there, check out those organizations, and please help them if you can, because they help us, and we're happy to have them as sponsors. We talked last show about inflation. And, it's funny because no one really knows what the term means, evidently. But it's really an inflation in the money supply, which creates a dollar that's worth less and demand of goods and services that drive up costs. So remember, inflation is created by public spending primarily. Let me talk about that one more time, just so I don't. I do want to bore you to death because I know how much you guys love economics. Let's talk about that just for a second. The price of goods and services are directly correlated to how much public spending occurs, because public spending drives up costs. You say, how does that work? Every time they print more money, the present value of the dollar in your pocket diminishes accordingly. And number two, the more money in possession and circulation, the more demand is exerted on the goods and services, thus rising prices are the result. If you want to get rid of inflation, it's not tricky. You can't trust the Fed. I don't trust the Fed to do anything. I do trust Congress at some point maybe to make a wise, no I don't. I shouldn't say that. I don't trust Congress to ever make a wise decision. The only way to stop this inflationary period is to curtail public spending. You do that, you'll see prices come back to a new norm. Now, there was one thing I did think was interesting about the difference in the way our party and our people react to the way the left reacts. It was interesting. You mentioned Prepper Beef. Mm-hmm. And it made me wonder about all the riots that occurred after Trump was shot at, which there were none.
I know. I noticed that.
There were none. Here's the thing. Law and order still prevails most of the time on our side of the equation. Have you noticed that?
I have.
Okay. And it's because ultimately we still believe in the institutions, kind of. I think that's being diminished now. And we still want America to survive and prevail because we love this country. And so even though President Trump was shot at and an attempted assassination occurred, you didn't see conservatives rushing to the streets burning down buildings. Now ask yourself this, wise people, had that been an American liberal icon, what would have happened? You think the liberals would have sat silent?
Not at all.
Give me a break. The inner cities would have burned to the ground. You know it, I know it. And that's the distinction primarily right now between the left and right. One still wants to save this country and the other wants to
burn it down.
That's the distinction. I'm going to get in trouble for that, but I'm prepared. But I was glad to see the riots didn't happen, and I'm hoping they never do. I'm hoping that common sense can prevail. I'm hoping the loudest elements on both sides aren't the ones that control the narrative. But at the same time, I do recognize, with the way the left is pushed, that this is a natural consequence of many, many years of being criticized, ostracized, and basically pushed off the margins of society.
Chris, it's a noble thought to sit back and say that we need to unite, we need to come together, and that sounds great in theory, as you were talking about. But the problem is, you can't get there when you've got one side that is so far radicalized because they don't want to like us. They don't want to get along with us. I think I've told this before. There are friends that I once had that because they got radicalized liberal don't want to be my friend anymore. Now, and I'm okay with that.
Now remember, not all Democrats, not all are radicalized.
I agree.
But when you fail to call out radicals in your midst, it creates a problem. And what occurs is the loudest voices on that side of the equation, for whatever reason, they keep the Democrat leader's attention more than anyone else. And so sometimes you think about Joe Biden, first of all, he has no cognizant, aware thought left. He's done. Yeah. He's done. God bless him. He's done. You think this man has an opinion one way or the other about women in men's restrooms. But he'll pacify the hard left trying to keep them under his umbrella.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a growing percentage of the Democrat Party. And so Democrats who used to be more mainstream have basically been silenced. And the people driving the Democrat bus are the AOCs of the world. What a lunatic she is. I've never thought I'd see a bartender try to impeach 2 Supreme Court justices. But now we've seen it, and it has about as much chance as this water impeaching the 2 Supreme Court justices. But she's going to file it, and MSNBC is going to report it because that gets the news. Speaking of getting news, did you see, and I'm not going to pass judgment just yet on this,
Okay.
although I might. Trump's Trump's vice presidential pick.
I have.
I don't know what to think of it. I mean, I'm not even going to tell you some of the things he said about Trump.
I have read them myself. I think a lot of people have.
Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about a personal experience and how everything goes to garbage sometimes, and then some people get away with this. Back in 2016, Ted Cruz is a friend of mine.
Yes, he is.
He probably doesn't want to be associated with me now because of this show. But he's a friend of mine, and I've known him for a long time. And I remember back in 2016 when Trump first announced he was running against Cruz, and it was a pretty heated primary. And my top 3 were always the same top 3. Mm-hmm. And Trump and Cruz were always 1 and 2.
Yeah.
For slightly different reasons. I like the way Trump threw bombs.
Yeah.
Everybody did. I like the way he took on the establishment. But I respected Cruz for his more principled conservative stances. Now, I made the statement one time during one of my rambling
I think I was
lives.
on the Facebook Live with you.
May have been. But I made the statement based on Trump's past record. I said he was not a constitutional conservative. Now, I said that in part because of a conversation I had with him years ago, but also in part because of the research and knowledge I had developed looking at his past record. That's all I said.
Yeah.
And it was used against me, and every little lady in Mississippi thought I was anti-Trump. Remember that?
I do.
And yet J.D. Vance can say, I want to...
Far worse. Far worse.
Gosh. He talked to him like he was the devil. Basically said he was Hitler as well. Mm-hmm. Said all the bad things you can say. I get punched in the nose for it. He gets advanced.
He's the nominee.
Welcome to politics, right? Now, the one thing that gets me about this election is that I don't doubt that he's probably a pretty decent guy. We just don't know a whole lot. What I do know is he seems to support increased minimum wage laws, which is, lunacy. He's for increased access to the abortion pill, is my understanding. He also is more of a protectionist when it comes to the economy. And, I know there are some people out there on the right that believe that we should impose tariffs and protect American jobs and workers. And from time to time, there could be something to be said for that. But when that TV you're paying for doubles in price in 7 years, I don't want to hear you complaining now.
You can't. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to hear you complaining. So Vance comes from a place where he wants to pass himself off as this regular guy.
Yeah.
He went to Yale Law School.
Yeah.
Stop. Just hard stop. Regular guys don't go to Yale Law School. Okay, now he may be a great guy. I don't know. But this whole blue collar, I'm just a good old Kentucky boy, I'm not falling for that. Yale Law School. Furthermore, he was an investment banker, I think a hedge fund operator. Mm-hmm. You think they just open those doors to anybody? I want you to apply for one of those jobs, Jack. See how far you get. And then
I already know better.
And then he runs for Senate out of nowhere. He's dead third. He's dead last. He's running third. Trump endorses him, and he wins. Now he's VP. There's the conspiracy. I'm just joking. Of course, I have no idea.
Yeah, you got to have facts, Chris.
Maybe he was just in the right place at the right time. But Yale. I'm still waiting for that Southern Miss grad to get vice presidential treatment. I don't know why not.
They don't nominate us.
Listen, I would. No, all joking aside, I would trust a Southern Miss grad well over a Harvard or Yale grad any day of the week. This Ivy League nonsense, we've had enough of that stuff.
Yeah.
You want an everyman, you want somebody to fight for you. Trust me, it ain't going to be from Harvard.
I don't believe it will be either.
It's just not. So, don't get me wrong. He may turn out to be a fine pick. It's just some of the early things I read I was concerned about. Then again, we have to keep our minds open, and we have to think that he will be fine. I just want to hear more from about what he believes.
That's kind of where I am, because immediately after it broke, because again, Folks know if you're in politics, they instantly expect you to be able to well, tell me about it. And I didn't have an answer. I didn't know, because I knew who he was. I had heard his name. I had heard him floated as, but he was like low tier of folks that anybody thought might be the selection here. I think the best reasoning I can come up with in my own head, and this is from other folks I've seen say it, is because they're trying to sell the story, the whole, oh, he's a common person, and it, again, when you do more research behind his little Netflix movie, his book, whatever that other stuff, when you do a little bit more research, you're like, well, maybe he's not quite as common as we're told.
Let's not kid ourselves. The whole movie, which I enjoyed.
I hadn't seen it.
I enjoyed it. It was designed specifically to put him on a public stage. Mm-hmm. I mean,
I don't doubt that at all.
And now, let's be real conspiratorial. Is there some sort of puppet master behind this? You think there could be?
I don't know.
J.D. Vance? I have no idea. I'm just joking. I hope nobody takes that seriously, because then it's going to be online later and everybody's going to be talking.
Don't run for another office, Chris. That's going to be used against you.
Well, I don't see how. I can raise questions about Vance. I'm just talking about raising conspiracy questions. And in fact, I'll take it a step further. If I were to start a conspiracy, I think it might help my chances of higher office.
That's fair.
In this day and age, maybe I'm QAnon. Maybe I'm QAnon. Do you know that? Hey, can you prove I'm not QAnon?
I can't. Can you prove you are, though?
Why would I do that and blow my cover?
Again, it's a mystery.
Why would I do that and
it's
blow
a
my
mystery.
cover? Don't ask me to blow my cover. It's not a mystery.
Well, that's the thing about conspiracy theories, Chris, is anybody can craft one. Anybody can come up with a half-baked thing, make it sound reasonable, and even by the end of it, if you're one of those so inclined, you might, even though you're creating this in your own head, you might start convincing yourself, because that's how these things get born, is from somebody.
Remember, humans want to find purpose.
They do.
I'll give you a couple of more examples of that. Have you ever met somebody, we all have somebody like this in our lives at some point, they can't wait to share news. It might be gossip. It just might be a news flash.
Yeah.
They can't wait to share it because it makes them feel like they're part of the news. It makes them feel special.
Yeah.
We see that. We saw that the other day when this occurred. Social media was just inundated.
Oof.
And all of a sudden, all my friends became experts on on Secret Service details. Everybody was an expert. They went from being constitutional law experts to Secret Service experts. Everybody knew immediately what went wrong. And but it's weird, because we watch it unfold, and everybody wants to get ahead and say something like they're a part of it. I don't know what drives that except purpose. We want to feel like we have
that makes sense.
Purpose. And so we watch people come up with these conspiracy theories because they're looking for purpose. And bear in mind that when you concoct something without evidence, it sounds good. And when another person looks at it and says, well, maybe that's possible, it gives that person purpose. Or it gives them a reason. But again, my dad would say, I need some more evidence. And it's okay to speculate. Why was the shooter allowed an elevated position from 130 yards away? That's a fair question. Yeah. Why did I saw the video of the people pointing to him, asking to get him down, and he was up there for a while and nobody took action. Those are fair questions, but that does not necessarily equate to a wide-scale government conspiracy. So we have to just slow down the roll just a bit. And when we talk about lowering the rhetoric, this is one of those moments we can lower the rhetoric. Do I think it's going to get 9 people? No. Does it make us appear more reasonable in the court of public opinion? Yes, I think it does. Now, as far as unite, we'll wrap up like this. I hope there is peace in our time for the sake of my children. But I think for us to have peace in our time, as conservatives, as Republicans, we have to learn to step in the gap and say no. Follow me here, Jack.
I'm listening.
For 40 years, we've always said, okay. We've always reached across the aisle. We always thought that was the way to find peace with those people. Mm-hmm. You can't find peace with people that urge constant and unyielding change to the very systems and the fabrics and the institutions of this country. You have to recognize at some point they're just wrong, and you can politely tell them they're wrong and just say no. It doesn't have to be a part of a conspiracy. It doesn't have to be a part of anger or name-calling. The answer is just no. Conservatives and Republicans have to learn to quit catering to these people and just to fight for our principles again by saying no. And that begins at home. It begins in our churches and our civic institutions. It begins in our communities. If enough of us just say no, you may be surprised at how far we can push back. One of these days it starts in a community, the next thing is a state. If states learn to just say no, you may have balance in the system again, and that's what we're all looking for.
Absolutely, Chris. And you want to believe that we can come back together. You want to believe that we can unite, but we can't, because again, just a day after they deliver a message of unity, you already see the inflammatory headlines. Huffington Post already, after day one of the Republican National Convention, authorities, I can't say authorities.
You having a stroke?
I'm struggling with that word for real.
Somebody get Jack some water.
Well, an expert responds to a bone-chilling moment at the RNC. Look, every now and then, and this is the worst thing that can happen to a broadcaster, is you're sitting there and you know a word, you've said it 1,000 times.
What's the word?
But it locks. I'm not even trying to do it. You know the word. You could say it. You could bail me out and say it for me. And you're not helpful here.
Well, that would not be good radio. Just bear in mind that the best radio is sensational radio, and that's got me in trouble a bunch in the years.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with the Huffington Post. Mm-hmm. They know what drives clicks, and that's one of the things about social media that makes that's got brain rot written all over it. The headlines that drive clicks are the ones that are the most inflammatory, the ones that drives the most anger, and that's what they're doing there. But you're right. Doesn't seem like peace is in the horizon, although I hope it is. And listen, we say a lot of these things tongue-in-cheek, but there's going to always be a kernel of truth to what we say, because if you follow human behavior and you're watching this unfold over the last 20 or 30 or 40 years, you see where this is heading.
Yeah.
And hopefully people can chill, take a deep breath. There is one answer, and we'll talk about this in a later show because we're out of time. I've told you since day one, nobody wants to listen to me. You're too busy thinking I'm a bad person because of headlines.
You're a bad person because you wouldn't help me with the word, but you know.
That's true. I'll get you a book. Now I forgot what I was saying. Congratulations. Congratulations. No, here's the answer. Here's the answer. Federalism. Federalism. That does not mean adherence to the federal government. It's a concept rooted in the Constitution. If you want to diffuse all this anger, if you want to make people be able to self-govern again, then stop trying to control them. Hear me out here. Both parties are fighting over a few acres there in Northern Virginia.
Yep.
And we want to use that acreage to control the other side. Stop it. Let them be free. Let them be Americans. Let them read what they want to read. Take what they want to take. Live the way they want to live. And bring that power home. Bring it back to the states and let the states decide how to best govern domestically. And what that looks like is this. Mississippi is going to have a very conservative, well, I would say that. We're full of rhinos.
You already know better.
Stop. Texas will have a very conservative government. Florida might. Texas will have a very conservative government. Yeah. California will be the land of lunatics. Yeah. That, though, is the answer. Decentralize power from Washington. Quit trying to control the other side. Let people live where they feel comfortable living. Let them govern themselves to where they feel comfortable governing, and quit judging so harshly. You leftists, leave us alone, and we'll leave you alone. That's the deal we'll strike, but not if we just keep fighting over Washington, D.C. Go back to the old ways. Decentralize the authority. Allow us to live our lives, and leave us alone. What is so bad about being left alone? But you know what? They can't do it. They want the money. They want the control. They want the minds of my children. They can't do it. Leave us alone. We'll leave you alone. And that's the answer. Decentralization of authority. Bring the powers back to the states. Allow people to control their own lives. And you'll find peace in our time. But if we keep walking down this path, fighting over Washington, D.C., you're just going to have a calamity. And we all see it happening. Got to turn it around right now. Look, I've had a good time, Jack. I have no idea what you were trying to pronounce earlier.
Authoritarian. See, I still can't say it.
Hey,
should I just put on the rhino mask since I can't say
words? You should probably make a note to never attempt that word again.
Next time I say it, it'll come out perfectly.
So try it one more time.
No, it's not going to be today.
This is Chris McDaniel's America. We've had a lot of fun here today, obviously. Jack, as always, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This is the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.